Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate taking the time to learn something new today, and especially if you're an aspiring customer success executive or a team leader, this session is for you. We talk a lot about being data-driven and getting the results that we want. There's one more tool that you need to put into your arsenal when you're thinking about becoming a performance-driven executive. And I have none the other than Tiffany Morin to share how she makes sure that she is driving her team and her agenda and vision to performance. First of all, really thank you for coming to the podcast and talking about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So as mentioned, you're the VP of customer success. You should be running a performance-driven business. And so meeting agenda templates are one way that I run a performance-based meeting with my team, with my leadership team, but then they're also carrying some of those best practices and those shared message with their team underneath them, with their CSMs, with their ops teams, what have you, any team rolling up under the VP of customer success, making sure that you're consistent with that performance-driven, data-driven way of running your business.
One thing that you're saying is that, look, to be performance-driven, you actually need to hold yourself accountable to a certain agenda when you're meeting with your teams and when you're meeting with your executives. And the tool that we're going to share is your template on how you're running those meetings. And everybody that's listening to this video, you can thank Tiffany later. We have a link in the description below. And so I'll share that. You can go ahead and download that template if you like to embrace that strategy and methodology and also adjust it to your own needs. Tiffany, why don't you, before we dive into that, kind of tell me a little bit, what propelled you to create a VP of customer success agenda for those meetings?
So as I'm speaking to different companies establishing their customer success team, oftentimes one of the bigger challenges that they face is, hey, we have a very junior CSM team. We have a very junior team of new managers. How do you plan to help them get ramped up and really standardize that process? This is the reason I created the templates. It's just, hey, how do I standardize how I lead, making sure that it's performance driven, making sure that my managers of customer success, directors of customer success are having the right types of conversations with their teams. They're performance driven, you're reviewing health score, all of the basic things that I want to make sure that they're discussing in meetings are actually happening. And so this template is one way to do that.
And who do you think should absolutely download this template if they have what kind of a situation?
I mean, any VP of customer success looking to standardize, what the template has is not just a meeting agenda templates with your leadership team, but agenda templates for directors of customer success, managing CSMs, a head of customer operations, managing their customer operations teams, as well as skip level meetings. It encompasses all of the main meetings a VP of customer success should have. So as far as who should download the agenda templates, really anyone looking to standardize their business, regardless of role within the customer success team. And as a VP, making sure you're running the right types of meetings with your team, all encompassing meeting agenda template.
Once you started creating a very specific agenda for your meetings with your team and your executives, what did you see start happening as something that you didn't have before?
There were consistent behaviors that started to happen. So what I've noticed as a head of customer success is some managers are more consistent than others when discussing things like customer health score with their CSMs and their one-to-ones. Some of them are less consistent, even asking, hey, how are you doing? How is your personal well-being? Because at the end of the day, it's both personal and professional, and there's obstacles both ways. And you want to get a finger on the pulse of not only how your team is performing, but really how they're doing in general. And so these meeting agenda templates, one thing they really helped solve for, aside from standardizing that, was, hey, I know my customer health scores are going to be updated. I know my directors of customer success are going to be fully ramped up on their CSM's book of business, any challenges. That way, when they come to the table with meetings from one-on-ones with me, we could talk through trends, we could talk through challenges, we could talk through where I perhaps need to be involved to help remove any roadblocks.
So let's dive into the template. And so the template actually includes, first of all types of meetings that the VP of Customer Success conducts. And you mentioned meetings with CSMs, with executive. Can you kind of elaborate? What are the main types of meetings you recommend other executives to actually frame out a clear agenda well in advance to make it more standardized?
So aside from meetings with your leadership team, so your directors of customer success, your heads of professional services, really anyone that rolls up underneath you, that's a different type of meeting. That's with your leadership team. And then you have different meeting templates for you're the director of customer success, running a one-to-one with your CSMs. You're a director of customer success, running a team CSM meeting. You're a director of operations, running a one-to-one with your ops team or a team meeting with your operations team. It also includes skip level meetings. So as a VP of customer success, checking in with your management team staff on how they're doing, performance, discussing the overall company strategy, and really getting to know them.
Whomever downloads this will actually get a sample agenda for various types of meetings so that they can kind of get a sense of best practices, what worked for you in your previous roles as an executive of customer success. The purpose you put it on an agenda, like we talked about the reason why it's encompassed as an agenda. And then maybe you could start and tell me, like, is there a different cadence what is your proposed cadence for each type of those meetings? And maybe we'll start with the one-on-one agenda for the manager or the director of customer success. What is the ideal cadence and what is the goal for this meeting at a high level?
When my directors of customer success or managers of customer success are having one-to-ones with their team, I want to make sure this is happening as frequently as possible, at least once a week. And usually this cadence runs about 30 minutes, though some run it for an hour. I try to ensure that my team isn't spending too much time in internal meetings. So I'm suggesting 30 here, but the goal is to really check in with the CSMs, understand their current book of business, uncover any roadblocks, offer suggestions, mentorship, anything really impacting goal attainment, you can discuss and strategize with the team. And then also personal and professional well-being. How are they doing? Are there any personal obstacles that may be impacting their overall work-life balance?
That's great. Are you expecting the CSMs to come prepared to these calls with our direct manager?
Absolutely. So CSM should come prepared. And when I was running CSM teams, this is why I fully expected. You should understand your book of business. You should have all of your CTAs up to date, your health scores up to date. That way, when you're speaking with your manager, you are fully aware of every update with your book of business, at least possible at the time.
Right. I think that's great. I wanted to ask you this. It says here that this is an agenda for a manager or director of customer success to meet with their direct reports. As the VP of customer success, should or should you not occasionally meet with the CSMs? And if you do, is the agenda similar?
I make sure that everything is performance driven. So I do have an agenda template for a skip level meeting, which is one where me as a VP of customer success, I'm meeting with my management team's direct reports. I'm getting a finger on the pulse of how they're doing. And more importantly, I'm giving them an update on company strategy, what my vision is, what the company's vision is. That way they feel like they are part of the team because ultimately they are part of the vision. They're part of the company reaching their goals and accomplishing that. And they should feel camaraderie. And the skip level meetings is one way to do that, while also getting a finger on the pulse of what might be going on. Are there any HR related issues that I perhaps should be aware of? Are there any coaching or mentoring that I need to do with my management team based on the feedback that I'm getting from their internal teams?
That's great. This is the skip level meeting. It's for the VP to actually meet with their direct reports. So let's talk about the leadership team. The post-sales leadership team meeting. This is everybody that reports to the VP of customer success, correct? And so just their direct reports, right?
Just their direct reports. This is your leadership team. Anyone that manages a team underneath them. For example, this could be the head of support. This could be the head of professional services, the head of operations, the head of customer success. Anyone that reports to you on the post-sales team, this is your leadership. These are your chiefs.
And again, here you also start with good news. Why do you like starting with good news? What's the benefit of that?
It sets the tone of the meeting. Plus, I want to get to know my team beyond just what do they like? What are their personal accomplishments? Have they finished an Ironman? That is something that I want to make sure that we're celebrating. Or it could be good customer wins. Tell us about a turnaround story. Tell us about a customer who became an advocate of ours and is going to be doing a speaking engagement. Like, what did you do there that the rest of the leadership team can learn from?
So if I'm not mistaken, this type of meeting is with all of the post-sales leaders, or is it also a one-on-one?
It's with all of the post-sales leaders. The leadership team meeting, there is a different agenda template for a one-to-one that you should be having with your directors of customer success.
Okay, so let's talk about the team, right? You only budget 5 minutes. How does everybody get to share? Let's say I don't know, 6 report. How do you do that all in like under 5 minutes?
So this is a classic level 10 meeting agenda template.
Mhm.
This is something that a previous CEO had implemented for his management team. And so obviously his management team is not just the post-sales team, it's everyone. And it has a very specific timeline for each and every agenda point. I don't often follow it. Sometimes I spend more time on good news. Sometimes I spend more time on rocks, especially if the company isn't, say, performing. Perhaps we're not hitting our KPIs and we really need to talk through that. But the main focus of this meeting is to focus on, all right, here's the performance. What are the things that need to happen, the challenges, the roadblocks that need to be discussed for us to hit our goals, if not exceed our goals? And so it's suggested timing, but really the focus of this meeting is my team is going to be solution focused, and we're going to be very open and honest with the challenges and propose solutions that we're developing as a team to really solve for those challenges.
All right. So you mentioned that this is a leadership team meeting, but you also have a one-on-one between the VP and one of the leaders. How is that different in terms of the agenda between that and what a director would do with their CSMs?
So the leadership team agenda, how I like to frame it is we as a team are going to be very open and transparent with the challenges of our business. And we as a team are going to strategize solutions. So it's a very solution-focused meeting. I'm not someone who hides past challenges. I make sure my team is very open with what conflict is happening, what needs to be solved for. Let's get creative as a team and really ideate together versus the one-on-one. You are doing some of that, but more so less formally. You're focusing on what's the individual performance of your book of business from a regional standpoint. Are you noticing any themes to customer churn, customer retention that may be more specific to your book of business? So it's more specific to their role, their region, their territory, their book of business as a CSM manager versus the post-sales leadership team is very much focused on, hey, these are our overall high-level rocks as a business, net and gross retention. What are the things impacting us from over exceeding our goals?
Got it. All right. So if I'm the VP of customer success, I'm meeting with the managers of the CS team, not everybody that reports to me, but specifically with the one that manages the teams. What do I actually hold them accountable to report to me during that session to make that session super productive for me as the VP? Meaning, like, what kind of questions do I have for them typically or should have for them?
So just as the CSMs have to come prepared for their meeting with their manager, I expect the same from my directors of customer success. I want them to be fully aware of their book of business, their performance, the challenges, any themes. That way they could roll up those themes to me. What are the major challenges facing perhaps a certain region over another? Are there any escalations that I need to be aware of? Any major accounts that are at risk that we need to discuss together because I perhaps need to be involved and need to step in? Are there any HR related concerns that you need to perhaps discuss with me that isn't appropriate for a group meeting?
Yeah. So anything that they might not share during the leadership meeting, they might share in their one-on-one with you, and you're going to hold them accountable to actually have a cadence and kind of tell you about those things. I love that. And then what is this career growth check-in?
Career growth. At the end of the day, the job of a leader is to obviously make sure their team's accomplishing their goals, but from a professional development standpoint, I want my team to move into different roles. I want my team to level up. I hire learners. Are they happy in their job? What mentorship do they need to be the best version of their professional selves, not just in their current role, but really in their next role?
Love that. Okay. So we talked about the team meeting that a CSM team leader would have with their CSMs, the VP direct meetings with their entire leadership team, and how would they do a one-on-one with a team leader of CSMs? What other meetings do you recommend having a standardized agenda for?
The other one is customer operations. So
Mhm.
having recently led a customer operations team, it is a new function. I get a lot of questions from other leaders saying, hey, we need to establish a formalized customer operations team. How should they be KPI'd? What should meetings with their team members look like? And so I've formalized it here based on my experience. And really the difference between, say, managing a CSM team is I make sure that my operations team is very projects driven. And so I'm checking in on the status of their projects. How are their projects helping to enable the different post-sales teams? Because I look at the operations function as the goal is to make sure that CSMs, any post-sale leaders, are enabled, they're efficient as possible, and they have the tools that they need to be successful at their job. And this checks in on the projects that are going to help the team accomplish just that.
Okay. And I see you hold them accountable for specific KPIs, again, challenges and career growth. So that's very similar. Should you also check with them on specific project, or should be like specific questions related to their areas of responsibilities? Like, do we get enough value from our system? What's missing from our CS stack? Or are you just hoping that this would kind of like be included in these sections?
Yeah, so a lot of that, I think, goes into the challenges and roadblocks. For example, we had to completely re-implement at my last company customer success management platform because we weren't getting full value out of the implementation that the team really started with. And so a lot of that falls into the challenges and roadblocks. And at a high level, it was impacting the success of a lot of our projects. I started noticing themes and said, all right, well, what needs to happen for us to ultimately solve this so that we can do health scoring correctly, so that success plans happen easily and it's not a pain for the customer success team to update them on a consistent basis. And so as a head of operations, you start noticing themes with the challenges and roadblocks, themes with what's preventing your team from accomplishing their KPIs. And as an operations function, you're digging into sometimes system integrations that take a long time. And so those are roadblocks as well that as a head of operations, you should be aware of. If your team is taking 3 hours to do forecasting, you need to update the systems and tooling to make sure that forecasting is easier for them to do.
Absolutely. Well, this is wonderful frameworks. And I think you're going to cut down the amount of times it takes anybody to come up with their own agenda, let alone just use yours. Is there any other agenda that you wanted to review that you included here?
I think that encompasses the majority of the meetings. There is a skip level as well, which we discussed at a very, very high level. But with that one, what I will say is VPs of customer success, come prepared to these meetings. Make sure your teams come prepared. To summarize, focus on 3 things: prepare, standardize, and set the tone of the meeting. Make sure it's positive and performance driven.
Well, I want to ask you, Tiffany, it's one thing to set an agenda, and then some people will always come into those meetings maybe unprepared, or some will actually have great slides and visuals for you to quickly understand what's going on, and some may lack those kind of skill set and they need to be coached. How do you deal with, you have a vision for what these meetings are going to be, and then there's reality strikes? How do you create this coaching level on leveling the game up for everyone on your team?
So I understand customer success managers are busy. My team is busy. There may be situations where they're dealing with an escalation before jumping on with me, and they perhaps can't be prepared. I understand that. I make sure that external meetings, external priorities take priority over what might be happening internally. So it is important to pivot accordingly, fit these to fit your leadership style, to fit your internal dynamic. I'm very transparent with my team. Not every organization, not every culture is comfortable with that. And so you do have to adapt the agenda. But as far as preparation, if I have a director of customer success who consistently comes unprepared to meetings, what about their schedule? What about how they're prioritizing things needs to change? Are they dealing with too many escalations? What do me as a VP of customer success need to do to make sure that they do have the time to come prepared to these meetings on a more consistent basis?
Okay. So one thing that's really helpful for CSM is to know what questions you want them to answer. That gives them a sense of coming prepared. Do you ever find that creating a consistent slide template potentially is something that you're expecting anybody that comes to your meetings to fill out? Or are you leaving it, I don't care if you just share verbally, present in slides, or maybe present in a Word document? Do you give them latitude on how they're going to present the answers to these questions, or are you actually providing a template?
I do give them latitude. I don't want my team spending an hour preparing for our 30-minute meeting. I also like to make sure that my team's enabled, that they have all of the right dashboards the operation team has developed with them where, hey, we could go to the VP of Customer Success dashboard and I have that available in real time. And I've trusted that my team, my CSMs, have updated all of the information. That way in those meetings, it's just, let's take a look at what's going on in more of a real-time basis.
I love that. That was going to be my next question. How many of these questions are you going to try and have answers to in a system so that you don't have to create slides? So you just answered that. And I think that's a really valid point. And that's why a lot of really successful executives invest so much in building systems with their data that's accurate and complete. And they weave in the agenda with their internal meetings to look into those dashboards so that the team knows the importance of having those up-to-date, accurate, and complete.
Exactly.
Any other suggestions for anybody that is trying to create an agenda for these meetings? Any other meetings in mind that maybe you did not include an agenda for?
Try not to over-inundate my team with meetings, but this primarily includes the agenda templates with the directors of customer success, their team, the director of operations, their team. What isn't included here, which perhaps could be added supplementally, is anyone within the post-sales team. Maybe it's customer engineering. How should your head of customer engineering be running their teams? Customer support, really any post-sales function you can create agendas and templates for. I'm very KPI driven. And so each organization is going to have their unique set of KPIs, which ultimately should roll up to overall company performance. You're looking at that net and gross retention, and really formalizing those meetings to make sure that they're focusing on the right types of things that are going to drive the business forward.
Got it. So the template includes the types of meetings you, Tiffany, found very successful to have on a consistent basis with anybody that reports under the head of customer success, the VP or the CCO. What it doesn't include, but you do recommend doing as well, is what is going to be your agenda and maybe even slide template for meeting with your executives, to meeting with your board of directors, as well as with your peers. What should your agenda be? Do you actually have a regular Cadence meeting with anybody that's your peer in the organization? And if not with everyone, who are the ones that you make sure that you do have a Cadence meeting with?
So there are certain key functions that you have to be meeting with on a consistent basis. For example, the CFO, or you're discussing the numbers, you're discussing the forecast, any other applicable details related to bookings or revenue recognition. I keep those less formalized, but there are many post-sales functions, and you should be prioritizing who you're meeting with based on the internal company dynamics. So where are you at as a startup? Are you developing your booking and revenue policies? At which point you're going to be meeting with the CFO and their team probably a little bit more frequently, or with the head of sales. You both should make sure that you're in the loop of, hey, here's the new business forecast, because I need to start preparing my teams for capacity planning based on what's forecasted, making sure that they're in the loop on any advocacy related activities that they could ultimately be leveraging for new business development efforts. So I do keep those meetings a little bit more formal, and I try to prioritize the meetings I have more consistently. That way I'm not spending too much time with just an extensive amount of internal meetings.
Yeah. And you also mentioned meeting regularly with either product marketing or the product team in general, depending on the size of the company, to get a kind of sense of what's in the pipeline, what's the roadmap.
Another meeting that I run is a customer success roadshow. And so I'm meeting with all of the different functions, perhaps on a quarterly basis. I have joined their team meetings, their leadership team meetings, their larger team meetings to discuss my strategy as a head of customer success, what my goals are, what's important to me as a leader, wins as a team, sharing customer stories, really evangelizing why they should be advocates of my team. Because at the end of the day, your head of product has to be on your side. Your head of marketing has to be on your side. Everyone is a member of the customer success team.
How often do you meet with the CEO or if you're not the CCO and you're reporting to the CCO, should you even meet with the CEO? What do you think about that?
When I've reported into the CEO, obviously I'm having one-to-ones on a weekly basis with the CEO. And even if you don't, I do suggest at least monthly meetings with the CEO, one-to-one, because ultimately that person is who your boss rolls up to. They are accountable for the entire company number, and you are responsible for a very important component, your net and gross retention of that larger company goal. And so making sure that you're staying ahead of company strategy, any finger on the pulse of what may be happening with the board of directors, what he has in mind in terms of maybe pivoting strategy or really staying focused on the same. So that meeting is really very important. If you don't report to the CEO, still meet with him as frequently as possible, at least once a month.
Okay, so once a month with the CEO, weekly if you report to him or her directly, and cross-functional teams depend on their importance to you. You would meet with the marketing, sales, product. You meet with all of them. Try to do it once a month. You don't have to have a rigorous agenda. I reckon it's like if you have some sort of a basic agenda, maybe not so rigorous with all the questions, you're going to have a more productive session with them. Although there's something to be said about just going to lunch with them every now and then.
Yeah, I always have an agenda, and I have to-dos based on what was discussed in those previous meetings. Not everyone is like that. Some people are less formal. I've reported to leaders that never had an agenda template. They're effective leaders. But me, my leadership style, if I have an action item that I promised the CRO I'd deliver, I'm going to come to the table with an update for him or her.
Well, this was awesome. Here's what I recommend everybody that's watching this video. Okay, so first of all, take a close look at what kind of cadence meetings do you have? Is there anything that Tiffany mentioned today that you don't do regularly? And if so, what's your style? Are you going to have a more formal agenda going forward? What's your call to action after meetings? Are you going to have meeting summary notes like Tiffany does? And at any event, for your direct report, I want to challenge you to have a more formal agenda so that people come to your meetings well prepared, and it's a very productive time for them because you only have so many hours in the week. Every hour that you meet on one-on-one is very precious. It's probably consuming a great deal of your time. Better use those minutes very carefully. I challenge you to create a formal agenda and to expedite the amount of time it takes you to create one. I highly recommend downloading Tiffany's agenda and format. And with that, Tiffany, you're so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing how you do things. You're so well organized. You have such great formats and frameworks that you bring to any company that you work with. I really appreciate you sharing how you do things with the customer success community.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, if you like this video, give it a like, thumbs up for Tiffany for today's session, download the template, share it with others. Big love from me. And I'll see you at the next video.